One of the most controversial calls in pro football has been reversed. Back in May, the NFL suspended 4 current and former New Orleans Saints in a bounty scandal in which players were rewarded for injuring opponents. But the man brought in to hear their appeals threw the suspensions out. Here's Jim Axelrod.
Former Commissioner Tagliabue is putting the blame for the bounty scandal squarely on the men running the New Orleans Saints, not the ones playing for them. Linebacker Jonathan Vilma had initially been suspended for a season. Linebacker Scott Fujita and defensive linemen Will Smith and Anthony Hargrove were given shorter suspensions. They were all accused of being ringleaders of a program that pledged bonuses of as much as $35,000 for knocking opposing players out of the game the last 3 seasons. Tagliabue found 3 of the 4 guilty of conduct detrimental to the league, but overturned all the suspensions, saying the Saints coaching staff crafted an environment where such conduct was permissible. This past Sunday on CBS, NFL Today host James Brown questioned Hargrove about his testimony at NFL headquarters.
Was there a bounty program by the New Orleans Saints defensive players?
JB, numerous players have said the same thing under oath that I said at 345 Park Avenue, and that is no, there was no bounty program.
Tagliabue says there's sufficient evidence of the bounty program's existence, but that, quote, this entire case has been contaminated by the coaches and others in the Saints organization. His decision suggests that responsibility for the players' behavior on the field falls on the shoulders of their bosses. None of the players missed any games. They'd been allowed to play while the appeals process unfolded. Saints head coach Sean Payton is suspended for the year. Defensive coordinator Greg Williams is suspended indefinitely, and those suspensions still stand. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
Joining us this morning, Sean Gregory from Time Magazine. Sean, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tara.
Do we know what led Paul Tagliabue to really overturn these suspensions? What was it?
It was basically that the team, the New Orleans Saints organization, were the ringleaders here. And so he felt that the penalties for the players were an overreach on the part of Roger Goodell.
So does this change what we knew or what we thought we knew about this bounty program? What's different now? Anything?
I don't think anything's really different. I mean, Paul Tagliabue was saying it existed. Now, folks are denying that it existed, but it seems like there was something going on there. There's been plenty of testimony that it did exist. What changes now is that the players are less it's less on them.
So we can still say that there were players that were involved that accepted money, received money for taking opposing players out of the game. We still know that to be fact.
According to Paul Tagliabue's ruling, that is indeed fact.
So what changes now? Of course, we had Hargrove that just mentioned, and that was just mentioned in the piece there. He said that there was no bounty program. Besides mentioning that we know that that's fact now, that was the case, what's the response been from the players? Do we know anything?
Well, the players are claiming victory because the suspensions were overturned, and they've been at war with Roger Goodell, saying that he's just been overreaching, he's abusing power, and Paul Tagliabue calls him out in a few places here for overstepping his bound and kind of not using common sense based on past suspensions. You know, you shouldn't be suspending these guys so severely.
What happens to these 4 players now? What does their future look like moving forward?
I mean, Vilma's still playing, Will Smith's still playing, Hargrove is trying to get a job, and Scott Fujita's been hurt. So these guys can go forward. You know, they're going to say that their names were sullied a little bit, and they have some argument there. But I think now with this ruling, this story's kind of put to bed, and everyone's trying to move on.
But they never stopped playing either, by the way, which is also a fair point, right?
Right. During the appeals process, the suspensions were vacated as well.
Are you surprised by this decision at all?
I'm not totally surprised. I mean, Tagliabue, you know, in a way it's surprising because this is his former protege, Roger Goodell, and he kind of calls him out for some things. But the union was comfortable with Tagliabue. The NFL was comfortable with Tagliabue. He's a reasonable guy. He's a smart guy. And he kind of looked at what went on in the past and thought that Roger Goodell was too severe for the future.
Does this set a precedent for the punishments that we see in the NFL in the future? What happens now that this decision was overturned?
Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of ties Roger Goodell's hands. I mean, Paul Tagliabue is saying based on past suspensions, you can't suspend players this severely. But Roger Goodell's saying, listen, I want the game to be safer. I'm going to punish these guys to create a safer environment, to create an incentive not to play dangerously. So now if he tries to be severe again, there's this Paul Tagliabue ruling saying you can't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. And now the players have now this precedent to appeal future suspensions. So Roger Goodell's job, which was already really tough, just got a lot tougher.
Any response from Roger Goodell, by the way? Have we heard from him yet?
No, we haven't. We put in a request to talk to him, and he's on his way to some meetings, but apparently he's talking tomorrow at a press conference.
Through this scandal, the resulting punishment, and then the reversal on the back end, what is the overall message that was sent? What's supposed to be learned here? What's supposed to be the takeaway?
The takeaway is this bounty program shouldn't happen. I mean, the bottom line is the NFL got its big picture. The big picture goal was reached. I mean, it would be crazy if a team tried this again, because remember, Sean Payton, the coach of the Saints, was suspended for a whole year, and the Saints season kind of got ruined by that. So any team that's going to risk this is taking a huge risk. I don't think we're going to see this again. And that, at the end of the day, is what the NFL wanted.
You know, there was this big deal that was made about the connection between football and brain injuries and making the game safer. Did this effort, did the bounty program and the resulting punishments, did that do anything in making the game safer? Or really, did we see sort of a toss-up here between the players' union and essentially the commissioner when it came to these punishments?
Well, in the semantics, each side can take some credit for victory. The NFL saying, hey, the facts of the case, Paul Tagliabue said, we were right. The union saying, hey, but we were right. You guys abused your power. Suspensions were too far. Again, I think the NFL got what it wanted. Warnings against this bounty programs, a message, you cannot do this. So is the game going to be safer in the future because of this bounty scandal? I would bet yes.
Sean Gregory with the last word from Time Magazine. It's good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Thanks a lot. Thanks.